What's up, vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. I have part 2 of a 3-part series that George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell from Weaponized are releasing with UFO whistleblower Matthew Brown. Now, part 1 has already been released, and I made a video about it. I'll put a link down below if you want to check that out and get a breakdown. But they just released part 2, and we're going to go over it in today's video. Now, stay with me to the end because I have an exclusive statement from Jeremy Corbell actually about another video I made of the jellyfish UAP video, right? So I'll put a link below to that video as well, but stay tuned to the end for that exclusive statement from Jeremy Corbell about that jellyfish UAP video. Please hit that like button, vetters. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every day about the UAP phenomena. Let's get this going. So, like I said, today we're going to be covering part 2 of Matthew Brown, right? A UFO whistleblower who just came out recently. Now, before we jump into these clips of this new episode from Weaponized, I've put together a little summary to help catch you up on who Matthew Brown is and what this is all about. Matthew Brown, a former U.S. national security official and intelligence contractor with top-secret SCI clearance, emerged as a whistleblower in April 2025, publicly identifying himself as the author of the Immaculate Constellation Report. This document, submitted to the Congressional Record in November 2024, alleges the existence of a covert, unacknowledged special access program, a USAP, within the Pentagon, codenamed Immaculate Constellation, which has been tracking and managing data on unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAPs, without congressional oversight for decades. Brown, who served as a policy advisor for the Office of the Secretary of Defense, a technical advisor for the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, and a program advisor for the Department of State, discovered the program accidentally in 2018 while reviewing misfiled documents on a shared Pentagon server labeled 2018 Shriver War Games. The Immaculate Constellation program is described as a strategic intelligence operation focused on global surveillance of UAPs, capturing high-quality multi-sensor data, including videos and imagery of anomalous craft. Brown accessed UAP videos on the Joint Worldwide Intelligence Communications System, otherwise known as JWICS, describing them as anomalous, exotic, and unexplainable, though not definitively extraterrestrial. A notable incident detailed in the report involved a large black triangular craft decloaking over Russian naval vessels in the Pacific, photographed by a clandestine U.S. submersible, with analysis suggesting the Russians had foreknowledge of the event. The report also referenced a centralized UAP data repository and mentioned alien reproduction vehicles, ARVs, hinting at possible reverse engineered technology. Brown's disclosure, shared in a 3-part interview on the Weaponized podcast with journalists Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, was motivated by a sense of duty and a belief that the public deserves transparency. He expressed significant personal risk, fearing life imprisonment or execution due to the sensitive nature of the classified information, and noted the toll on his career and future plans. Brown followed legal protocols, submitting his materials for pre-publication review at the State Department, which did not object. His revelations have sparked congressional interest, with figures like Representative Nancy Mace raising concerns about secrecy and constitutional violations. Further disclosures are anticipated as Brown's testimony is part of a broader wave of whistleblower accounts, including those from David Grush and Luisa Elizondo, fueling calls for UAP-related hearings expected in May of 2025, this month. Skeptics, however, question the program's existence, suggesting the Immaculate Constellation file might be a fictional war game scenario from the 2018 Shriver War Games, potentially inspired by UAP lore following the 2017 ATIP exposure. No conclusive evidence has been made to the public, and the Pentagon has denied the program's existence. Brown's claims remain a focal point in the ongoing UAP disclosure debate, balancing credible testimony with the absence of tangible proof. All right, so now that you're caught up a little bit here, All right, so now that you're caught up a little bit on who Matthew Brown is and what he's coming out about, let's jump to this first clip again from part 2 of a 3-part series from Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp of Weaponized with UFO whistleblower Matthew Brown.
So the idea that it could have been a war game, could it have been something, some of these UFOs that have been seen over nuclear missile bases, silos and things of that sort, the implication has been, as with drones, that it's a readiness test of some sort. We're going to put some secret operation, unexpected, and see how people and systems react to it. Could that have been what was going on here?
Yeah, I mean, it is something that, on the surface level appears plausible. I do not believe that to be the case, given the circumstances of how it was located, the fact that hundreds of people had access to that system, the fact of its generic labeling. It wasn't, there's no red flags on that to draw any fish to the bait, as it were, to catch somebody. And then the process of reporting it, there's no outcome from that, besides apparently making a lot of people pissed off and worried and kind of scared.
And let me add to that, something that we noticed, and I believe it's true reporting, which is that when David Grush testified, Immaculate Constellation, before the world ever knew those words, was searched on Google a ton. Additionally, over the research and time and sources that we have, it has been confirmed to us under no uncertain terms that that was the name of a program with that nature. So if we're looking at it as like a LARP kind of thing, we get to the point where there's too many outside confirmation after the fact, as well as
right.
Yeah.
If that had been the only thing I had seen and none of the rest of this saga had happened,
right,
we wouldn't be talking.
Totally.
And that was something that a lot of people brought up, right? Was Matthew just getting confused and was seeing something that's typically done by our military, right? These sort of made up scenarios to help train people, right? A war game, right? Literally game in the title, right? And Matthew explains how he doesn't think that was the case at all, right? Because of so many other things that happened as well. Again, I'll put a link in the description to the full part 2 episode from Weaponized, but let's continue with even more clips because the most bombshell part is coming up. Now, before we get to that, listen, y'all, I got to keep the mics on, so let me introduce the sponsor for today's video, PIA VPN. I think it's time we talk about your online security and how you're handling it, because today I want to talk to you about PIA VPN, Private Internet Access. And what is a VPN? Well, it's a virtual private network. What do virtual private networks do? When you go online with a VPN, all your inbound and outbound traffic travels through an encrypted tunnel. This means ISPs, cyber criminals, network admins, and anyone else who might be snooping on your activity won't be able to see what you're up to. A VPN routes your traffic through a remote server instead of sending it straight to the site you're trying to reach. This masks your real IP address with one of its own. And that's where PIA VPN can help you out. A VPN can also make it seem like you're somewhere else. If you're in the UK, for instance, you can connect to a VPN server in the US to get a US IP address. The more servers and country locations your VPN provider has, the more options you have. And that's where PIA VPN has your back. And one subscription protects an unlimited number of your devices. And let me remind you, vetters, this is a product I use. VPNs are awesome for connecting, honestly, across the globe to get access to content you normally wouldn't get. Is there a favorite show on Netflix that you want to see, but it's only available in the UK and you're in the US? Guess what? VPN. You want to protect yourself against people who may be trying to snoop around your stuff? Guess what? VPN. And that's where PIA comes in, because they have an amazing offer right now. By using my link down below, you can get a very special discount, 83% off. It's just a couple dollars a month. You even get 4 months free. So please use the link down below and get started protecting your privacy online today. And to make it easier, just use the QR code that's on the screen right here. Now, let's get to the most bombshell part of this interview with Matthew Brown, because what he's about to say here, if true, changes everything. Take a look.
When I was in USDI, I read the transcripts of Sean Patrick briefing Senator Rubio, Senator Warren, and Senator Gillibrand on the results of his investigation in his congressionally tasked Arrow report. And those transcripts, which were supposed to be open kimono, here's the truth, Mr. Senator, Mrs. Senator. Sean Kirkpatrick absolutely distorted, downplayed, and can't prove it, but I would say outright lied to the people who have direct responsibility for him.
Saying what? What did he say that was a lie?
So it's more of a lie of the whole thing,
Big picture.
the big picture, right? In the meeting, it's, Congressman Rubio, we've heard about this incident. We just don't have enough data to go on it to really know what this is. We don't have any way of really figuring out what's going on. It could just be an anomaly. In fact, it's most likely an anomaly. So starting with an acknowledgement that, here, you have some data, but we have the insight and the scientific expertise to make you feel at ease.
Nothing to see here, folks. Move along.
Exactly. Although there was also political discussion involved and historic discussion. And I read these transcripts once and immediately knew that
Veiled threat?
No, I knew that I was now something else. I had inside knowledge into the deception of our government by elements of our intelligence community. My blood ran cold at a specific point in that transcript where Mr. Rubio is discussing the legacy program. This was a subject of direct discussion with Sean Kirkpatrick in these meetings. And based on Mr. Kirkpatrick's replies about as vague as they were, but unable to escape the truth of the legacy program, Mr. Rubio's response was, well, what the hell is the executive branch doing? Have they been running this for 60 years without congressional oversight? I might be paraphrasing a little, but that's near enough verbatim. And I saw that line, and I basically closed that file and had a pretty sleepless night.
All right. You said your blood ran cold, meaning you're pissed, you're spooked.
Scared.
What is scared?
Scared
For your country.
I just think in general, it's like I don't know, there was nothing associated. It was just like immediate, oh, fuck.
Good response.
Yeah.
Meaning you now know this is real. This is a cover-up. They are lying about this stuff.
Yeah, at that point, I definitely knew the phenomena was absolutely real. I knew we were tracking it. I knew we had lots of resources on it for some time. But getting to that final step in the ladder and seeing and the cover-up is real, and it's inside the house.
So the TLDR of that entire thing is basically he saw proof that, Sean Kirkpatrick was sort of admitting there is a UFO legacy program, and Marco Rubio's kind of asking him, so what, we've been hiding this for 60 years? Like, what the hell's going on, right? But he's basically saying that Sean Kirkpatrick publicly has been saying something different, right? But privately kind of admitting to it, right? And that's the big bombshell from Matthew Brown here, right? Again, if we're to believe that this is true, and honestly, I have every right to believe that what Matthew Brown saw, he is saying. Now, does that mean that the legacy program is real based off of this? I don't know. They probably need more, but it's definitely very, very interesting. And I do find Matthew Brown to be highly credible and just seems honest and sincere. That doesn't mean everything that he's saying is true, but he believes it to be true, right? And this is definitely an interview well worth watching all the way through. So again, link in the description. Go check out the full interview with Matthew Brown here in part 2. But I'm not done. There was still more I'm going to cover in this video, because this next part, depending on how you look at it, could transform the way we interact with each other and how military changes their protocols and, modus operandi moving forward. The implications of what Matthew is about to say here is game-changing.
You read one document that said Immaculate Constellation, and it had some images with it. What additional information did you come across that reinforced your belief that there is a big surveillance program collecting this stuff?
Well, I mean, one is just the fact of its existence, right? In the brief, it's talking about the general mission. It's giving examples, but it's clearly talking about a collection mission. And then there's programs that have since become public. The most relevant one in this case is the NRO Sentient program, that kind of, at least in the open source way, demonstrates how you don't need a massive workforce to do this anymore. You don't need buildings without windows for acres to have people taking this information and sanitizing it, making it sure it gets to the right people without the wrong things in it. And that's just on the inside.
Right. Like you don't also need exposure to a bunch of human beings with individual egos and identities. To be clear, there's kind of AI siphoning off of data and information to keep it compartmentalized without spying of human eyes, even within our intelligence agencies, if I'm understanding it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a Janus, a two-faced god. It takes things in one end and makes sure you hear what you need to hear out the other.
Right. And you suspect that UAP, when that data is collected and brought in and ingested, that there is a whitewashing, or not whitewashing of it, there is a clarifying of that stuff to make sure the general people in the intelligence community don't see it.
Absolutely. And that's a long-standing practice especially for imagery intelligence. Just nothing about UFOs. Back in the Cold War days, if a facility or an aerospace platform was seen that, was collected, there'd be a full version, right, for those who needed it. But if you just needed to see the facility, but maybe not the plane, those would be manually excised. Now we have tools to do that for us.
Could you describe then for us how you think this works? Whatever the name for it is now, how it works.
Well,
did we have an AI system in 2018 that could do what we're describing?
Well, we know we did. Those documents have since become public.
Right.
Sentient.
Right.
And the fact that Sentient was operational at those dates of the documents mean it was operational for years before then, years before 2018.
We've had our conversations, private and otherwise, about this kind of an operation. And it just seems like, gosh, there should be somebody who's collecting all this information and studying it and trying to figure it out. And the fact that it goes into the executive branch somewhere, if that's what happens to it, good. I'm glad somebody's doing it. Why is that, as you've learned about it, why is that not necessarily a good idea? Is it because it's not maybe really within the executive branch, that it's an entity unto itself?
Why it may not be a good idea to censor our intelligence products that are circulated within our cleared community to our service members that are on the front lines every day is because you are blinding them to their environment. You are opening them to threats. You're exposing them to risks. And you are essentially inhibiting the pursuit of national security objectives by doing so. There's a reason you guys have talked to so many whistleblowers from the military who see these things. That's partially because they're reporting it, they feel endangered by it, and nothing is being done, and no answers are being given. And they are, in some cases, suffering legitimate injuries.
So, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments. But we're not done yet, so stay with me. Check out this montage I made of the implications of inserting AI into our military applications.
Artificial intelligence and warfare. Let's talk about what this really could look like.
Vladimir Putin once told a group of young students that whoever leads an AI will rule the world, and why the White House recently issued its first memo on AI, calling it an era-defining technology with significant and growing relevance to national security.
Swarms of lethal drones with facial recognition that know your every move.
Our military is going to have to change if we are going to continue to be superior to every other military on Earth. And it's through that degree of strength, that military strength, and the willingness to use it, that I think you maintain that international order and that you maintain the peace.
Whereas if you have a computer system that is offering a bank of targets and the commander is scrutinizing those and knows the system, he knows what it's been trained on, and therefore he knows when it might work effectively and when it might not. And he knows when not to rely on it. He knows when to question it, when to mistrust its inputs. That seems to me much more like human control, even if he is ceding quite a lot of control in some circumstances, but holding it back in others. For me, that is the debate. It's way more complex than, hand over to the killer robots or not. It's when are you trusting the systems? What do you know about them? Have you interrogated them to understand what their weak spots are? That, to me, is really where the debate should be.
Or unmanned, armed robots that are near impossible to defeat.
As we saw earlier, in war, whoever can get the most information and make the most accurate, fastest decisions is usually the victor.
There have been several periods in history that have transformed military operations or armed warfare. Where does artificial intelligence sit in that?
That's huge. In fact, I've referred to it as the mother of all technologies sort of thing.
Autonomous fighter jets that can travel at supersonic speeds and can withstand greater gravitational force than a human pilot could survive.
Humans tend to assume that decisions made by a machine are correct, which makes us particularly prone to be swooned by AI-generated information. I mean, I feel this. When I talk to ChatGPT, I often feel a bias to believe it because it sounds right. The machine just spit it out in this digestible, authoritative, natural language. So there will be a lot of incentive and momentum to let the machine do a lot of the work, to make decisions quickly and deal with the consequences later. Something we may not be able to catch until it's too late.
Cyber attacks that incapacitate critical port infrastructure, or disinformation campaigns and deepfakes that throw presidential elections.
Machines are going to make mistakes. They'll do some horrible things. They will encourage you to bomb a building that you thought was a military target that turns out to be a shelter for civilians. But hey, guess what? Humans do that as well. The question is, are machines going to reduce the incidence of those things?
Or even foreign adversaries taking out satellites, our eyes and ears in space, rendering us blind to global events.
As of now, the Department of Defense guidelines say fully autonomous weapons systems must allow commanders and operators to exercise appropriate levels of human judgment over the use of force. Those standards will apply to a new defense program called Replicator, a Pentagon initiative aimed at countering the size of China's military. The program will produce thousands of autonomous weapons systems powered by artificial intelligence. The International Committee of the Red Cross says autonomous weapons, including those that use AI, could lead to unintended consequences like civilian casualties or an escalation of conflict.
The reality is, there's no going back. No one's going to pump the brakes on integrating AI technology into warfare. No one's going to wait for the ethicists and the lawyers to decide if this is ethical or legal or safe. Geopolitics will force this forward. All we can hope for is wisdom and foresight from those making the decisions on how we use these systems so that we approach it humanely and responsibly.
All super intelligent weapons of terror.
The future is going to be humans working with AI to wage war.
Artificial intelligence has a huge amount of legal, ethical, and moral implications that we're just beginning to start to come to grips with.
We're at the dawn of a new age of warfare.
So let me know what you think down in the comments. How will AI influence our military worldwide? And how does AI influence the collection of UAP data? Right? This is a conversation, unfortunately, we can't avoid. We're going to have it. So let me know what you think down below. Now, but at the end of the episode of part 2, they put a little preview for what's coming up in part 3. And I have to admit, it's going to get juicy. Take a look.
In part 3 of our interview with the author of the Immaculate Constellation Report.
What is it like to have absolute knowledge that not only UFOs are real, that we've been hiding that our government has controlled that information away from the base human population?
What I have learned is that we live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted.
Who are they? Why are they here? Why don't they show us what's going on?
I think I have a good degree of confidence that the reason they're here is us. I think life, especially sentient life, is a precious thing. And I think to some, it might be a resource.
Now, like I said, I'll put a link to part 2 down below. Go check out the full episode. There's way more I didn't talk about in this video. Now, at the beginning of the video, I promised an exclusive statement from Jeremy Corbell about a recent video that I just made where a new jellyfish UFO video had come out, allegedly the full video, 17 minutes, right? Well, Jeremy responded, and I thought it would be fair to clarify a little bit of details, and here's the statement. That's not the whole video, unfortunately. Check out our original reporting on the case, link below. George Knapp and I used our words precisely in our original reporting. It's worth taking another look closely. The video wasn't described as 17 minutes. That was the duration of time that it was reported by witnesses that the object was submerged before reemerging. Arrow was informed where to obtain the full video. They got the recording that remained at the base. Originals were reported confiscated day of without official sign-out, under armed escort. Arrow either did not obtain or did not post any of the footage of the UAP going in and then out of the water before taking off at a high speed. They did not post this part on JWIX or SIPRNet or publicly. They only show you the portion of the filming of the object traversing the base. That's it. It's a great case, and I suspect there's more to tell on this one. And then they include a link, which I'll include below as well. All right, y'all. Hope you enjoyed today's video. All the links down below. Check them out. We'll see you on the next one, vetters. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.